Hello, friends, and welcome to the Nugget Climbing Podcast. I am your inquisitive host, Stephen Dimmitt. Today's guest on the show is Matt Fultz. Matt is a professional climber who is at the top of the bouldering game right now, having just sent Hypnotized Minds, his first V16, and his hardest rock climb to date. Matt's trajectory in the last few years is also amazing if you haven't followed him. He climbed his first V15 in April 2019, and as of this recording, in just the last 18 months, he has climbed a dozen more V15s and a V16. I actually caught up with Matt the morning after he sent Hypnotized Minds, so the timing was super fun. We talked about projecting the boulder and what a typical session might look like, including how he warms up to try V16 and to climb on some of the smallest crimps in the world. And we also talked about the send session and how the project went down. We talked a little bit about Matt's training and why he opts to deadlift tension blocks for finger strength rather than hanging on a hangboard. We talked about weightlifting and how that fits into his philosophy of practicing like you play when it comes to training. We also talked about strength to weight ratios in climbing and prioritizing strength first. And we talked about using your build as a gift, which was super cool to hear about. Matt also talked about his go-to climbing shoes. He uses one model of shoe for everything from roofs to slabs. And we talked about starting OTG Strength, a new company he's building with his wife, Hailey, to offer personalized climbing and nutrition coaching for people that want to climb just like Matt Fultz, or at least better than they climb now. I linked to all the things in the show notes. You can find those at thenuggetclimbing.com. Got some new stuff coming soon with the podcast and on Patreon. It's taken a little bit longer than I had thought, but it is coming, so keep your eye out. And in the meantime, please enjoy this conversation with one of the nicest and strongest humans around, Matt Fultz.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Matt?
Hey, it's pretty good. How are you, Steven?
Good, man. Very
Nice.
good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good.
You having a good morning?
Yeah, so far so good. We pretty much just woke up. We got back a little bit late. And kind of just went straight to bed. But I had breakfast and some caffeine, so
there we go.
Should be okay.
Perfect.
Hopefully I'm coherent and I sound somewhat intelligent.
You seem like it. You seem wide awake. Did you get a chance to celebrate last night?
We stopped and got a McFlurry.
Nice.
It was the only place open 24 hours, so. But man, yeah, it'd been a long time since I had one, and so I was pretty stoked. Anyway.
What flavor did you go for?
I got the Chips Ahoy.
Oh man, nice.
Yeah,
I love it. That was one of my questions. I was curious what treat you were willing to compromise for after a send like that.
Oh sure. Well, yeah, definitely. For me, I'm gonna have like a cheat day today.
Okay.
So often I'll go out for ice cream or something after a good send, but this one took me quite a while, so I'm gonna have a full day.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have it all planned out?
No, not yet, but I think that's part of the fun. I have a few things in mind.
Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm sure by the time people listen to this, the news will have spread and people will know what you did, but yeah, you did something pretty cool yesterday. What was it? What was the thing?
Yeah, I just sent Hypnotized Minds, which is probably the hardest boulder I've done, I think, in my life. So
Awesome.
Thanks.
We talked on the phone a couple weeks ago, and you said that you were working on it and that it would be your most proud send when you did it.
Yeah,
It feels that way?
Yeah, it feels that way.
Awesome.
I don't think it's at my limit. But it definitely felt like limit bouldering when I was working on it.
Okay. I love that distinction. That's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Damn, you're going to have to travel, huh? There's not that many harder things to try in the world.
Oh man, I don't know. There's a lot in Colorado.
Okay.
You'd be surprised, but I mean, obviously, traveling is in the future too.
Cool. Well, we just threw it out there like everyone knows what it is, but Hypnotized Minds is a V16 that Daniel Woods put up on the Veritas boulder off of Bear Lake Road near Estes Park, Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's probably got some of the smallest holds in the world.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the crimpiest climbs. It's probably the crimpiest climb I've ever tried.
Okay.
As far as just the intensity of the holds and the steepness.
Last time we talked, it sounds like you had just worked on it the day before, and temps weren't ideal, and you were focusing on making each move easier for when the non-ideal, or for when the good temps came in.
Right. Yeah. Some fitness laps.
I'd love to hear, if you're willing, I'd love to hear in as much detail as possible, what did a day look like of projecting on something like Hypnotized Minds? Let's start at the warm-up, and I'd love to hear just how you think about a project session like that. Yeah,
sure. I mean, really, it a lot of it leads up to the warm-up. It's kind of all prep. For me, the day before projecting is pretty important, that I have a good active rest day. Where I'm going on walks and, I'm trying to I'll concentrate on and do some work, but I'll try and go on some walks and I'll do some pull-ups here and there and then some light stretching and just really make sure that I'm physically, but also mentally focused and ready to go. And then as far as the warm-up goes, that changes a little bit for me. Based on the boulder, and then kind of based on if there's any tweaks or anything that I'm feeling, I'll pay some extra attention to that. But I have a pretty typical warm-up that I go through. But the warm-up for everyone is pretty personal and kind of personalized. And so I kind of do my own thing and then make any tweaks that I need to if the boulder has like a really intense drop knee or something. And then Hypno had some really intense cramps for me, so my warm-up included some work on the tension block, which is this wooden grip implement that has some small crimps on it, and I would do several pulls with each hand on the smaller crimps, just to try and get my fingers ready to pull on those holds.
With the tension block, are you just using like a sling around your foot?
Yeah, mostly just stepping on the sling.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I'll kind of play around and try and get loose on a slab or something, V0, nice and easy, and just climb free and be loose. And then ideally I'll get on something a little harder, maybe, that I have wired, or like one of the easier sections of the project. Okay. And I'll do maybe a lap or two on that, and then I'll feel ready to go. And I always go by feel. So
okay.
If I don't feel warm yet, I'll run another couple laps, or I'll go back and play around on the slab. But yeah, I'll always go by feel with the warm up.
Okay. There's a great training video from you. I think it was a couple years ago. You climbing at the Tension Training Center. And for that, I think you were doing a couple minutes on the rower machine to get your body temp up and just get the blood flowing.
Sure.
What do you do on an outdoor day? Do you do anything to just kind of get your body temp warmed up in general?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there wasn't a rowing machine at Hypno. That would have been nice.
That's the future.
But no, I mean, I do like to kind of raise my body temperature before I start stretching and warming up. But I kind of consider the process of getting the pads and everything to the boulder and the hike itself is at least raising my heart rate up a little bit.
Okay. Another thing that was interesting that came out of our conversation previously was that, you said that usually you're weaker after a month of projecting than before. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of this game that you play of splitting yourself between 3 or 4 different projects to do different moves and not get too worn down by a single set of moves and that sort of thing.
Sure.
Were you doing that with this one? Did you have other projects that you were splitting your days between?
A little bit. I've been working on this project up at the Green 45 area in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Okay. Is that the boulder with jade on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Kind of off and on, not quite as seriously, but just something to kind of get my mind off of it. And then, but mostly kind of in the last couple weeks, I've just been trying Hypno and climbing in the gym, kind of active rest days in the gym where I try and get a lot of movement in on some easier climbs so that I can still climb but save some skin. And also, I mean, for me, the intensity of the crimps on my tendons really took a toll. A couple of years ago, I actually injured myself and I popped a pulley on Hypno.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on that hold. So I kind of made sure that I didn't go out there more than, twice a week at most. Just because, it's just really hard on the tendons. I can't grab those holds very, very much before they really start feeling tweaky.
Okay.
So,
Got you. So when we talked a couple of weeks ago and you had that session where the conditions weren't good and you were just trying to make all the individual moves easier, how do you approach that? What's your process like for that kind of a session?
Yeah, just super, super detail oriented. Yeah, I try and look at all the holds closely and assess all of my beta. And I try to think of like what sections feel clunky or, what sections can I clean up and, be a little bit more precise. Where do I need to maybe speed up my pace? And then where do I need to slow down my pacing? All of that kind of plays a role into success on a project. So those are the things that I like to focus on is, I would say like pacing, precision, and positioning, body positioning. And so those are the things that I'm trying to figure out. And then every once in a while, it's nice if you kind of figure out, new, different beta, putting your foot in a slightly different place or grabbing a hold a slightly different way. Those are kind of the bigger breakthroughs that are nice that can sometimes happen when you're just working through sections over and over again.
Okay. So what does that look like? Are you climbing sections of it many times in that session and just kind of seeing how things feel and making subtle tweaks each time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always I always climb by feel. So, if a section doesn't feel very good, if it feels, like I said, clunky or that there's no way I could do it from the start, then I'll run a few laps on it and try it in several different ways, until I feel happy with it. And that's kind of my process. I'm not going to try it from start unless I think I have a good chance.
Okay. Once you climb a section and it feels really good, do you move on or do you try to repeat that section in a way that feels satisfying to you multiple times, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, it depends on the boulder for
Okay.
sure. I think that as soon as I get a section down and I'm happy with it, if it's a real limit boulder, I just start trying to add moves either into it or out of it.
Okay.
So, I try to make that link bigger, or I'll do a couple moves into that section that feels rough.
Okay.
And then eventually, you're just trying it from start.
Okay. What did your session look like yesterday once you were at a point where you were ready to give it red point burns?
Yeah, so it went pretty much exactly as I said earlier, kind of the ideal warm up, except when we got there, the temps were just about perfect. In fact, it was snowing a little bit.
Okay.
So, and for me, pretty much the colder the better. I definitely don't climb as well when it's warm. And thrive, I think it was in the 30s yesterday.
Oh, dang. Okay.
I was thriving. It was when I did it, it was just Hailey, my wife Hailey, and I there. Hailey was filming and supporting, and so it was just me, the boulder, some light snow, and Hailey, and that's kind of how I imagined I would do it. So that's how it worked out.
Was it the first try of the day?
It was the second try from start of the day. Yeah, so I just kind of, did my normal warm up, and then went, I did the stand start one time, and then tried it from start. Fell kind of early, didn't feel like quite warmed up, and so I did a few more hangs and brushed all the holds, and then did it next go.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you.
That's very, very cool. You're definitely, when I think about the people that have done that rock climb, it's uniquely inspiring to hear that you've done something like that, because, Daniel and Rustam and Dave, I don't know how much these guys weigh, but they're all just tiny. And you've got muscles and you're strong, and, rock climbers are all just tiny people. So you're a bigger guy relative to those other guys. And it's just awesome to hear that you're climbing on the smallest holds in the world.
Well, cool. Yeah, thanks. That means a lot that you say that. I think that it is kind of important. I'm at a weight that I'm comfortable at, and so I think that's what really matters. I'm at a weight that I feel strong at, and that's also manageable for me. And so, yeah, I do feel like I'm climbing well, and I am a little bit heavier, but I think that the weight that I have is helping me pull.
Mm-hmm. We got into that on the phone call the other day, and you said something really interesting. You were talking about using your build as a gift, and how, someone with more muscles who's carrying a little bit more weight, we have certain advantages that smaller climbers don't have. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that, anyone should use their advantages the best way that they can. I was actually just talking to a shorter climber yesterday, and who was kind of frustrated about her height and it holding her back. I said, yeah, that is a problem. Sometimes your height's going to hold you back, but also think of those times when, you've got like amazing scrunch power. You can like really get into these scrunchy positions that I couldn't even think of getting into, and being powerful in those positions. So, using those, obviously identifying those weaknesses and working on them is really important, but equally important is identifying those strengths that you have and taking advantage of those. And so I see that the same way for me. Maybe sometimes, I think sport climbs are a little bit tougher for me at this weight. And so I can identify that, maybe my endurance isn't so great, and that's something to work on. But I think that I can climb several days in a row. I can climb for a long time. I have good capacity. I have good power. And I have good power endurance. And I'm tall, and I'm lanky. And so these are advantages that I can use and take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love the way you think about that. We were also talking about, I think you said something about the strength to weight ratio, and you're like, it's those two things. It's not just the weight. It's strength to weight ratio, and I think you said strength comes first.
Yeah, exactly. Often we focus on the weight so much, but we forget it's a ratio, and the strength is just as important, and if not more. Yeah, that's exactly what I say. Strength to weight ratio, strength comes first.
I'd love to hear how you think about balancing performance with your training. When I look at your Instagram, for instance, my perception as someone looking from the outside is that you're constantly either sending something hard or training really hard. There's just like always a post about you sending a hard boulder outside, or you doing some really hard thing on the tension board, or on the spray wall at the tension center. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to talk to you on the phone about it. It seems like maybe it comes back to this just go by feel sort of thing, but it seems like you really just kind of take each day one day at a time, just based on what the weather's doing and that sort of stuff. How do you think about balancing your performance with training?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely depends on the time of year. And so we're coming into fall right now. And so my program looks a little bit different than it did in the summer, where it's kind of an unknown of when I can get my training in, because if the weather's good, then I'm going to be outside trying my projects. So it looks a little bit different now, but I definitely I definitely have a program that I make for myself, and I try to stick to. But when the weather's good, you got to take advantage of that. So there's definitely a balance.
Gotcha. And you were telling me that you can do 2 training days in a row, but not 2 performance days in a row. And it was interesting to hear how you think about kind of combining those things. Can you speak to that?
Sure. With performance days, when I'm trying really hard on a project, I really go all out. And so the next day I'm usually just trash. So I'll take that day as sort of an active, then day after a performance day, sort of an active rest. But again, kind of going by feel. I like to climb that next day, but just not performance. Maybe I'll do like a movement day. Or a strength day, and then I'll take a rest. But yeah, I can definitely do 2 or even sometimes 3 training days in a row. But if I do a performance day, I know that I'm not going to have a very good performance day the next day.
Okay.
So I definitely have, and that's just me personally. It's just something I know about myself. And some people feel really good second day on and can just crush, but it's not really me. I have to kind of prep and plan for those performance days.
Okay. I want to come back to that training video that I watched from September 2018. So it's a little bit outdated now. I know some of your methodologies have changed a little bit.
Sure.
You led off in that video by talking about how your training philosophy is practice like you play. Mm-hmm. And it really does seem like the bulk of your training is on a climbing wall and doing climbing movement. But you also do some fingerboard stuff and some weightlifting. You were telling me that you never really stop lifting weights. You always do a little bit of it kind of all year round. So
yeah,
I'd love to hear about that, the practice like you play and how you think about balancing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's super important to, if you're doing competitions, you're going to want to be doing a lot of mock comps, and 5 minute on, 5 minute off kind of thing. For me, really focusing on outdoor projecting, I want to be climbing at my limit, between 20 seconds and a minute. And so that's really why I like climbing on the boards, tension board, kilter board, moonboard. Those are a lot more specific to to my goals than maybe weightlifting or something like that. Where the weights come in and kind of the things that seem a little less climbing specific, they still work climbing muscles, but they're not wasting my skin. So that's one thing that I like about it. And then also I think that they are great for climbing. They're in the right, if they're hitting the right energy system and the right muscle groups, and you have a good set rep scheme, and you're working at the correct intensity, then I think that it is pretty directly helpful to climbing. But again, climbing is the most important thing to get better at climbing. But if your skin's just wasted, then getting in the weight room can be a good alternative. And that's what I like to do.
Do you have, it seemed like you really stick to the compound exercises. Do you have go-to exercises for the weightlifting?
Yeah, I have several. I think that it differs depending on the person, but for me personally, I do a lot of overhead work. So I try and do, overhead press or incline bench, things like that, for, kind of shoulder antagonist muscles. And then I like to do like overhead squats as well. We would hold the weights overhead and do squats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that for like the mobility component of that, or?
Yeah, definitely mobility in the shoulders and the posterior chain.
So you're like holding a barbell straight above your head with both arms and squatting?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I like to do that a lot. And then, yeah, well, I mean, if you want to know more, you can sign up for OTG.
Oh, perfect.
I can plug that.
Cool. Yeah. Let's I do want to give you plenty of time to talk about that. Let's come back to that towards the end here and finish with that. I want to ask about one other thing from that video. And I had never seen this before, but you've already talked about the tension block, and I'll link to that in the show notes for people. But rather than hanging on a hangboard in that video, you had 2 tension blocks, and you strapped them to a hex bar, a deadlifting hex bar.
Yeah.
And you were deadlifting the weight. And it was really interesting on the phone to hear how you thought about that. But I'd love to hear why do that versus hanging from a hangboard.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with hanging from the hangboard, and I like to do my repeaters hanging as well. But I think that when you're bringing it off the ground in sort of a deadlift with a tension block or a similar grip implement, the limiting factors are different. So when you're hanging, sometimes the limiting factor can be your shoulder or kind of your core tension stability, trying to keep you straight and upright. And that those are taken away, minimized when you're bringing them off of the ground in a deadlift. So your shoulder is less of a limiting factor, and your core and your tension is less of a limiting factor. And it's more about the pure finger strength.
Got you. So to clarify one thing, and something I hadn't really thought about, as strong as you are, you're doing most of your kind of max hang style work one-armed. So with the one-arm hangs, the shoulder girdle becomes the limiting factor really quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's really interesting. It was interesting to hear that you have a pretty limited grip selection. It sounds like you really just train like 3 different grips.
Yeah. So, I'll do 3-finger drag, which is kind of the most open hand that you can get.
Okay. So index, middle ring, open.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
And then mostly, I'll say 75% of the time is half crimp.
Okay.
Just fingers, bent at about 90 degrees. And then sometimes I'll go on a real small crimp. If, like I said, I'm warming up for Hypno with the tension block, I'll go full crimp on a 10 mil. Okay. Yeah, full crimp, like thumb wrapped on the 10 mil. But I like that half crimp the best because I think that it, I'll usually grab crimps, half crimp, but then also training that grip can, I think, help both your full crimp and your open hand. Okay. Just because it's right in between.
So just to clarify that, so you do 3-finger drag sometimes, crimp sometimes, but the bulk of your finger strength is your half crimp.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Will you focus on multiple grips in a session or just kind of stick to one most of the time?
Yeah, I'll do multiple grips in a session. Yeah,
Okay.
if it's my grip day.
Grip day. I like it. How many grip days do you typically have in a week? Let's go summer and then also off season.
Oh, sure. Summer it might be
performance season rather.
Yeah. Summer, like off season might be every other day.
Okay.
Yeah, but then off season it's probably once or twice a week.
Okay.
Usually I kind of it's tough, but I kind of like to do it after a performance day. Because then I'm not climbing as much, and it's difficult to get good numbers on that day because like my CNS is shot.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll typically go the day after a performance day because then I'm not climbing and I'm just kind of I'm still doing some max outs.
Okay. Mm-hmm. As far as the board climbing goes, I'd love to hear how you think about that as well. How do you decide whether to do a tension board session, moonboard, kilter board, or make up stuff on the spray wall? I've seen you do circuits sometimes. Is that all programmed in, or is that stuff you just kind of go with the flow and decide what you want that day?
I'd say a bit of both. Okay. It's a lot about convenience. If the gym I'm at has a kilter board, then I'm going to use that. But if I have, my choice, it'll probably come down to my skin and how my fingers are feeling. Okay. If I'm real low on skin, but I want to get a climbing day in, then I'll probably hop on the tension board since it's got the wooden holds. Okay. For me, it's nicer on the skin. little bit softer grips and just as fun as the other boards. So that's usually my go-to is the tension board. I also like the shapes, but I've really been enjoying the kilter board as well recently. The holds are awesome, and there's some really fun problems on the app, and I've just been having a lot of fun kind of exploring it as kind of the newer board.
Okay. Does it change based on what your outdoor goal is? Which board you climb on and the style and that sort of thing?
No.
Okay.
I don't think that affects it, but maybe that's something to think about.
Okay. I guess
I would say in some way, maybe in that something like Hypno is really hard on my skin, and so I would be more likely to train on the tension board.
Okay. Gotcha. I'd love to hear, someone who is you're clearly a very thoughtful guy about
thank you.
your approach to your performance and nutrition, all the things you're thinking about performance, nutrition, training. You're clearly very detail oriented. Mm-hmm. Having climbed as long as you have and around as many climbers of all different ability levels as you have, I'm sure you've been climbing around a lot of the really strong, other really strong guys in Colorado these days. Mm-hmm. I can't help but wonder if you've noticed any patterns. Are you noticing any patterns among the successful climbers and what's allowing them to succeed versus maybe some of the things that hold other people back?
Wow. Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that there's multiple factors. I think that having a really good support system is super important. So, I have Hailey, and she's not a climber, but she really enjoys watching me climb, and she's my, biggest support in my climbing. And I think that's been really huge as someone that's helped me and enabled me to follow my passion and has encouraged me and inspired me to train and get better and really push myself. And I say as long as Hailey's pushing, I keep pulling. So I think that's a really big thing. I've been coaching a lot of youth the past several years, and that's something else I've noticed is it seems like when the parents are more involved, the kids perform better.
Interesting.
And and I mean, I think that's part of what makes ABC so successful is coaches like Robin and Ryan are so involved and so invested in the kids. And so the kids have that really strong support system with the ABC family. And I think that is something that really helps them thrive.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Let's extend that to the crag. What about tactical things or the way that people go about approaching their project day or things like that? Are there any things that you're noticing? And I guess there's two questions. Mm-hmm. What do you see some climbers doing wrong? Or on the flip side, what are some of the other high-level climbers doing right?
Yeah, sure. Not to name drop, but I had the opportunity a few years ago to go climb in Australia with Jimmy Webb.
Okay.
And that was super cool. I didn't have my best trip ever, but it was probably one of the biggest influences on me because I just got to watch Jimmy and several other really strong climbers. Paul Robinson was there, Nalle was there, and I just got to watch them and their process in detail. And that's exactly what it was. It was detail oriented to the point that I would have never even dreamed. So, modern bouldering technology with the fans, wrapping down boulders and working moves on a rope and just being so detail oriented on everything, making sure the ticks were in the exact right spot, making sure they knew exactly where their hips needed to be. It was just super eye-opening to me that a kind of a side of bouldering that I hadn't seen before. And so it was something that I wanted to implement in my own climbing. And I think that was really huge for me.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Thanks. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, but it's exactly. It was something I wouldn't have learned if I hadn't have been out climbing with climbers that were much, much better than me.
Okay. I'd love to circle back to your nutrition. So you've mentioned your wife Hailey a couple times, and she is a nutritionist. And it was really fun. I actually got a chance to work with her a little bit. She did that August promo where she was helping some climbers, and and that was really interesting. And there's a bunch of takeaways that I got from that, which was really cool.
Oh, great. Yeah, cool. I'm glad you got some value out of it.
I'd love to hear for you, what are some of the bigger ticket items that you've worked on with Hailey that have made a big difference for you in your nutrition?
Yeah, man, I think that there's so much, but timing has been a really big thing. So not just what I'm putting in my body, but when. So the timed nutrition has been really big. So and it's kind of changed how I go about climbing. So climbing during my day, kind of around what I'm going to be eating, and that maybe sounds like it complicates things, but it actually simplifies things a little bit. Of knowing when I'm going to go climbing, and then knowing when, and then I can kind of shape my meals around that, or I can plan my climbing around my meals. So,
okay, just provides a little more structure to your day.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's helpful, and so I mean that's just one thing besides what I'm actually putting in my body.
I know she and I geeked out about protein synthesis, and that was a big part of, more protein synthesis windows and that sort of stuff. Is there anything else with the timing that you guys are focusing on?
Well, Hailey can definitely tell you a lot more and in better detail than I can.
Cool. I'd love to talk to her. That'd be really fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you anything about protein synthesis, but I can tell you about my pre-workout and my stacks and the vitamins that I take.
Sure. Let's do it. I'd love it.
Stuff like that. Oh yeah. I mean,
what's your pre-workout?
Yeah, sure. I make sure that I have 40 grams of protein beforehand, and then also with some carbohydrates. So something that works well for me is like a third cup of oatmeal.
Okay.
With maybe half a banana or some blueberries and protein powder. Okay. Yeah. And so some like whey isolate, or I like the PhysiVantage whey. Okay. And it's something that's pretty light on my stomach and has like the carbs and the protein that I need. And it usually gets me all the way through the session, no problem.
That's super interesting. Yeah, it's such a common thing to do the protein after. That's something that I'm sure most people still do, or that's kind of more like common. Mm-hmm. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, but yeah, you're told protein after, right? But and that's true, but protein before is equally as important. Gotcha. Cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. Cool. I'll touch base with Hailey again. I'd really love to have her on, and I'd love to geek out with her on some of this stuff.
Oh, she would love that.
Cool.
Yeah, you totally should.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. I would love to ask you about your climbing shoes.
Okay.
So I worked at a small rock climbing gym at Western Washington University way back. This is, an old entrepreneur gym, and 12 years ago or something. And I think at some point we got some deal on some Madrox shoes, and I tried one pair once, wasn't thrilled with them. 12 years ago, Madrox didn't have, they had a reputation for being affordable, and maybe you'd compromise a little bit of quality with that.
Totally.
But you just climbed one of the hardest rock climbs in the world wearing Madrox. So clearly they've come a long way, and Absolutely. They're a very high performance shoe now. So I would love to hear, do you have a go-to shoe for Madrox?
Yeah. I like to wear the drones.
Okay.
And specifically the high volume drones. So they make high volume and low volume, but the high volume fit my feet a little bit better. So
they're just a little wider in the toe box?
Yeah, kind of fat feet, yeah.
Okay. That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's super nice. And sometimes I'll go low volume if it seems like it's going to help on like a project that I have. But normally, as far as just comfort goes, the high volume is what I like best. But the best part of the drones are the heel hook, and they have, you know, this famous heel lip that help you heel hook on crimps. And so that's kind of the secret. Some people think it might be aid. But you know, you got to just use it. You're
just sky hooking the crimps with your heel. That's exactly. Cool. I want to check those out. Do you wear those for everything?
Yeah, I have to wear them for everything. I used to be sponsored by another company, and I was happy with their shoes, but I had like, you know, the quiver of shoes where, and you know, two or three or four pair that I liked, and I would switch out.
Sure.
If I felt like I wasn't doing well in those shoes on that boulder, but I felt like I got kind of too neurotic about it, and I would just start blaming the shoes if I wasn't doing well.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna wear one pair of shoes, and if I can't do the boulder, then that means I need to get better at climbing, or you know, something else needs to change. Like, I'm done just blaming the shoes.
Yeah.
And yeah, luckily, I mean, the drones are the best all around shoe I've ever put on. And so that's pretty lucky. Yeah, to also be determined to only wear one type of shoe.
That's super interesting. I'm really curious now because I'm about the same weight as you, and I found that I'm kind of gravitating. I'm trying to simplify my quiver as well. I feel the same way. I get really overwhelmed, I think, with all the different options sometimes.
Yeah.
And I've been climbing in Sportiva for quite a long time, and I'm kind of gravitating towards two different pairs. One being kind of a stiffer shoe for face climbing and edging and that sort of stuff. And I feel like at my weight, I kind of need that support to stand on really small feet. And then I'm kind of still playing around with different options for like a softer shoe for steeper climbing and toe hooks and heel hooks and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's super interesting. So you feel like the drone really covers all that for you?
Yeah. I've done probably my hardest roof and steep climbs in them, and my hardest slab climbs in them. So, yeah, they're just a good all around shoe.
Cool.
But like kind of going back to that. I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a quiver and a bunch of different options. And in fact, I've talked to someone about this before, about, you know, how I was neurotic about having too many pairs of shoes, and if I wasn't doing it, it was because of the shoes. They said that they actually had the opposite effect, where if they weren't doing something, then they can just change shoes, and then they should be able to do it.
Huh.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that is a good way to frame it, you know, mentally, and it can go both ways.
Yes, someone else solved the same problem with the exact opposite solution as you.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
That's life, isn't it?
Yep.
That's so interesting. Okay. Well, I have, like I said, the last time I tried Mad Rock was like 12 years ago. How do you size those?
Let's see. I wear about 10.5 street shoe, and then I've been going 8.5 in the high volume drones.
Okay. And
a 9 in the low volume. So, and I don't think I downsized too much. So I would say that a size and a half down is probably from your street shoe is probably about right. Mm-hmm. That's
interesting. So wait, you wear the high volume and the low volume as well?
Yeah, I'll kind of switch in between. I've been really into the high volume most recently, but yeah, every once in a while I'll order a low volume if I feel like there's a kind of a boulder where it might be more useful.
Do you have an example of that?
I was kind of convinced, actually on Hypno, that you have to put your foot in this like V slot, and so I was thinking that a lower volume shoe would fit in the slot better.
Okay.
But for me in that specific situation, it didn't make a difference. So I just kept the high volumes because they're more comfortable.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks for all that. I will definitely link to the drones in the show notes for people if they want to check them out.
Okay, perfect.
I'm quite curious myself. After all these years, maybe it's time to try a new brand.
Yeah, try it out.
Tell me about OTG. What are you guys up to with that?
Cool. Yeah. So OTG is our climbing, training, and nutrition company that we started just this past May.
You and Hailey?
Yeah, Hailey and I have been doing that. Hailey took over the nutrition side of things, and so she's the nutrition coach, and then I'm the climbing coach. And so I do personalized workouts for all of our clients. You know, they come in and they do a test week. Well, they don't come in; it's remote, but they come into the app and they do a test week, and then based on the results of that test week, I write their program.
Okay.
For the rest of the month. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, if you do, you know, both that and nutrition, then you also get a nutrition program based on, again, a nutrition test week.
Okay. And I asked what you guys were offering, and I think you said something to the effect of the programming is really the product.
Yeah. So, I mean, we definitely work really hard to make sure that the programming is good and that it's appropriate for everyone at their ability and their experience level, and that it fits kind of their goals and their equipment and everything. We work really hard at that, but I think also part of the product that we are providing is consistency and accountability.
Okay.
And so I love it when my clients send me videos of their project that they sent, and I get to enjoy their success just you know, to an extent, and sometimes as much as they do. And so that's something that's really fun. But that accountability aspect of it, where they know that if they aren't checking in and they're not doing their workouts, that they're probably going to hear from me. And we say, hey, like, I mean, not in like I'm never in a get your ass in gear kind of way, but it's like, hey, how can I, do I need to adjust these workouts? How can I adjust these workouts for you? And let's work together on this program. You know, they're going to hear about that if they're not checking in regularly, but you know, when they are, and then they're plugging away, and then they're sending their projects, and they're super proud and happy. I get to be super proud and happy with them, and that's just the absolute best part.
That's super cool. It sounds like it's all very hands-on. Are you guys just working kind of one-on-one with clients at this point?
Yeah, definitely one-on-one, and like I said, it's remote, so it's all online. But yeah, it's been even though that's how we've been doing it, we've been developing some really good relationships through it. And yeah, like I said, I mean, that's just the best part is getting to be part of other people's journeys.
Are you guys at capacity right now? I know it's been pretty successful so far.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it has. We are considering opening slots.
Okay.
And then, you know, people kind of end their programs usually towards the end of the month when they're done with their, a lot of times you just finish your cycle and you go into your performance phase, and you know, they might come back in a few months. But it's like, you know, they end their cycle and then they're off into their performance phase. And so then that opens slots as well. But yeah, we're kind of at a tipping point, kind of cuspy, where we're going to have to start, I don't know, hiring people or putting different systems in place, because yeah, it's very fortunate, but yeah, we are pretty much at capacity right now. Mm-hmm. But people should definitely, if they'd like to, fill out an application, and we would love to get back with them and put them either on a waiting list or directly onto our client list.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's OTGstrength.com.
Okay. Perfect. I'll link to that in the show notes too.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Is there anything that you have struggled with or implemented to try to balance this OTG coaching with your own climbing and training?
Yeah, it hasn't been too crazy. I think that we are pretty good at balancing it. You know, some days are definitely longer than others. But a lot of times it's checking in, and I can be done with work in 2 or 3 hours in the day, and I don't know. It's easy to also get a good climbing workout.
Okay.
After 2 or 3 hours of work. So some days, usually towards the beginning and the end of each month when we're onboarding new clients and kind of promoting a special and stuff, we'll definitely have longer days. And then also the programming sometimes takes a long time. So if there's a client that just finished up their week and I need to really get down and sit down and write their program, that takes a little bit longer.
Okay.
Time. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason we decided to branch out and do our own thing is so that we can work on our own terms and set our own hours, and climbing is definitely still a priority to me, and I'm able to get enough climbing in as well.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you're working on in particular with your own climbing or maybe practicing right now?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just sent Hypnotized Minds just a few hours ago, and so things are kind of changing a little bit, because that really was what I was practicing, and kind of how I directed all of my sessions was just trying to get better at that kind of climbing. And so things might change a little bit in the future as I'm kind of project shopping now. And
okay.
I think that I'm going to probably be spending the weather looks just amazing the next couple weeks. And so I think that the next couple weeks, it's just going to be a lot of climbing outside and a lot of just having fun.
Sweet. Challenging
myself outside, and maybe not too worried about like grabbing the razor edges on the hangboard and
nice. Good.
Setting the timer and just trying to bear it out. But
you've earned it. Do you keep a running list of climbs that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, in my head I do.
Okay.
And there's definitely plenty out in Colorado, and it seems like V15s are getting at it every other week.
Oh my gosh, I know. It really does seem that way.
Yeah. So there's really no shortage.
That's something I'd love to ask about. Actually, I hadn't really planned to ask this, but you were in Salt Lake for quite a while, and it seemed like your main climbing area was Joe's, and you were doing some hard stuff there. But at least from my perception, you moved to Colorado and just proceeded to go on this rampage. Just I don't know if it's just the style suited you, or there's just that many more boulders that you have access to. But how important and formative has that move been for you with your outdoor climbing?
Yeah, it was really huge, and I think that it is a combination of things. It's having the access to that many boulders, and so you can kind of cherry pick the ones that you're most excited about at a grade range that's challenging for you, and so that was a really big deal for me. And yeah, just like the amount, the volume of hard bouldering here is pretty wild. So yeah, I mean, you can just turn around and project a V15 and then turn around. I don't know how many V15s there are within 2 hours of my house, but it's definitely in the double digits.
Dang. That's amazing. Is that the spot? Is that home for the foreseeable future?
That's another tough question too. I don't. Hailey and I have been looking at RVs and thinking about van life. Okay. Which I would be super stoked about. Yeah. And yeah, that is something that we're excited about, and we've been saving up for a long time for kind of a dream like that. Okay. So we're hopeful, but we're not sure if it's going to happen super soon, or if we're going to wait another year, or things are kind of up in the air there. Okay. Cool. Excited to see what happens with that. Yeah, me too. Thanks.
I'd love to ask you, what is something that you've been feeling especially grateful for lately?
Yeah, it might be obvious, but I've been especially grateful for Hailey, my wife, recently. She, like I said, I mean, she was out there, and she's been there every day that I was trying Hypnotized. And then last night, like I said, those were my temps, which means they're pretty miserable for pretty much anyone else.
30 degrees in the snow.
Yeah, 30 degrees.
Was
in
it
the
a
snow,
night session too?
It was at night. Yeah.
Oh man.
She's not a climber, but she was out there and she was filming and supporting, and then she was just as happy as I was when I was able to do it. So,
that is so cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask her what her cold weather wardrobe looks like.
Oh man, it's just layers. She's just a big puffball of layers.
Awesome. Well, you already mentioned OTG, your website, and I'll link to that in the show notes. Where else can people find you?
Thank you. I think if just probably Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me outside of the OTG site. Just shooting me a DM or something like that. If you listen to this podcast and you had a question, I'd love to answer it over
awesome.
Over DM. Yeah. And anything like that. So
awesome. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you and I were talking on the phone, I'd asked you what your focus was these days, if you're still competing. And I think you said that you're shifting more and more towards outdoors, and specifically, I think you said like 90+% of your focus is on outdoor boulder red pointing, and that seems like that's going to continue indefinitely for you. And then I really loved this. You said, Dave Graham is 11 years older than I am, and he's still progressing. And Jimmy Webb is 5 years older than I am, and he's still progressing. And it just sounds like, kind of the sky's the limit, which is really gets me fired up to hear. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, those guys are huge, have been huge influences on me, and are hugely inspiring to me. And I mean, Dave especially has been since I first started climbing. So yeah, just seeing that he can get into a shape that he has never been in before, and at his age, climbing harder than just about everyone. And same thing with Jimmy. And I said, I look at Jimmy and he's still progressing. And as long as he's progressing, I've got at least 5 more years. So, I'm not discouraged about, I just turned 29. And I'm not discouraged about that at all.
No.
In fact, I've just, since I started climbing, I've only improved every year. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like when I'm 34 or 35 years old.
Me too. How do you think about goals? Do you have big long-term goals, or, having sent your hardest climb that you've ever done in your life yesterday, do you already have the next goal lined up in your mind, or do you just kind of take things in stride?
Yeah, I'm kind of taking it in stride right now. I think that, like I mentioned before, like the van life is a real dream and something that we're going to work towards in the near future. And I think once that is more solid on when that's going to happen, or even if that's going to happen, then I'll probably be able to make goals from here out. That'll look more like traveling and extended trips to different places.
Okay.
But yeah, as far it's hard to give specifics right now.
Gotcha. With as much time as you spend indoor rock climbing on the boards and that sort of thing, is that something that you are wrestling with at all, or have thought about with the van life idea, like how you would continue to train and have high quality sessions when the weather's not working out, or when your skin's shot, or that sort of thing?
Sure. That is something we thought about. I mean, it's nice to have gyms around, because I really do enjoy indoor climbing and just climbing whatever it is. But that has been a concern. We were looking at like toy hauler RVs that are set up so you can put your 4-wheeler in or something, or like your jet ski.
Are you gonna put a moonboard in your RV, Matt?
That's a dream.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah.
Tension board in your RV.
Yeah, Hailey's a little concerned because of the weight of it, adding that much weight.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I think I can convince her.
Yes. That is amazing. Oh, man. If you send everything on there, you can just park it on a slight downhill and make the board a couple of degrees more overhanging and carry on. Yeah. Don't put the jack. Yeah, don't put the leveling jacks up. I love it.
Yes.
Well, Matt, I know I've said this about 1,000 times, but congratulations again on your send.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you were like one of the first people I told.
Oh, that's awesome. Lucky accident there.
Yeah, nice.
But it's fun. I listened to a podcast that you did with Chris Hampton on the Power Company, I think back in February maybe, and I think you had been trying it quite a bit by that point, and I think you had fallen off the last move and we're getting really close. So I know this has been a big investment and a ton of work, and it's a big one for you. So it's very cool.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
And I'll be in touch because I'd love to have Hailey on the show.
Cool. Yeah, I think she would love that. Although I don't want to speak for her, but I think she would.
Cool. I'll reach out to her.
Okay.
Well, enjoy the cheat day and delicious food and celebration. And are you going out to eat, or do you have like a next delicious meal lined up or anything? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're going to go walk down Pearl Street in Boulder.
Okay.
And get some ice cream cones and just kind of enjoy the day.
Nice.
And then we're going to go buy a bunch of junk food from Target. Which, like, I
love it.
You know, with Hailey, that never happens. So
totally.
That makes it double special.
Yeah, this is like a once a multiple year sort of occurrence.
Exactly. Yeah, so we will enjoy our Oreos today.
Nice. Right on, man. Well, you've earned them.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Steven.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.